Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's session on internal communications done right. My name is Evan Glazos, and I've now met both of you properly, so I don't think I need to give too much of a background. So Andrew and Kelly, Andrew is based in sort of outer Melbourne. Kelly is up in Brisbane, serving in the diocese there. So it's great to have you both here. Thanks for joining me. Today I want to sort of help give you some practical information on how we can improve the communications, particularly with our staff members, but also for key volunteers as well. I've got a framework of ourselves and then our immediate team, and then we've got sort of the larger church body and then the wider community as well. So today we're particularly focusing on that communication with our more immediate team. It's probably not going to be our 100 volunteers who serve across lots of different ministries, more the key leaders and your staff as well, whether they're part-time, full-time in that capacity. And Adam's joining us. Perfect. We'll say good morning to Adam. Hello, Adam. Anyway, good morning, Adam. We've just done the welcome. So today we're going to, particularly look at some tools and strategies that we can start to shape and implement for improving our communication. We want to be looking at reducing the number of inputs and outputs that we have in terms of our communication with our team. And in the process, we also want to be reducing email because that very easily becomes overloaded. You have a big backlog, and there are systems in place that can make our communication much more effective and efficient too. And also let's reduce some meeting time as well. So they're the three things that we want to focus on today. At the end, I'll give an offer for help if that's going to be useful for you going forward. And let's just quickly pray and then we'll jump into it. Father in heaven, we thank you for this day. Thank you for looking after us in this time and in this season. I thank you for each one here on the call, and I pray that you'll be giving us wisdom and strategies to make our team function well, to be able to communicate well, for there to be transparency and clarity in what we do. And we ask for all this in your name. Amen. Hi, Adam. Great to see you, my friend. Cool. So today we've talked about what the goals are out of today. So I'll ask you just a few questions first. And there's so few of us, feel free to unmute your microphones. Firstly, if we just jump around and can answer these questions. So what are the current tools and channels that we're using of communication with our immediate team? What's working well, what's not working so well, and what are the consequences of that? Andrew, let's start with you. You're the most warmed up.
Sorry, who are you asking?
Yeah, Andrew.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Jump in.
sorry. So currently in staff, we use Microsoft Teams as a way of a lot of during the week conversation. There are a few emails that go around, but Teams isn't the majority. And it works okay. I think some questions about level of detail and when people are expected to be on that sort of channel and when to use it in a sort of not to be constantly messaging. Emails people don't tend to answer in a timely manner. I think we're doing okay, but it'll be interesting to see how to get things a bit tighter. That's where I'm sort of at. Yeah.
Great. Sorry, can you just repeat what was that first, the main tool?
Sorry, Microsoft Teams. So
Teams, great.
we used to use Slack, and then we moved to Teams
Cool.
as our main
And you're utilizing other Microsoft tools as
Yeah,
well.
we have the Microsoft suite, so we use that.
Great,
Yeah.
cool. Adam?
Yeah, we're using like lots of things, so it tends to tends to depend a bit on what people prefer. We've been talking about moving to Trello as a organizational tool, but we haven't successfully done that yet. We use a lot of just internal chats, either WhatsApp or Messenger, just depending on the group that what they prefer. And yeah, and a lot of Google-based stuff, so calendar and Gmail and stuff also, just to keep us organized. Most of our stuff resides in a Dropbox, and we use that as well. So lots of, they kind of work relatively well together, but not as integrated as I'd like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And Kelly, what's your experience?
Well, we're kind of encouraging parishes to use Microsoft Teams more because we've rolled that out across the whole diocese now. But of course, we've got a bit of a mix. So there are a few parishes that have embraced Teams in a similar way to how Andrew was talking about. But then there's others who are just, they're doing text messages, they're doing a million emails and things like that. And then there's the diocesan communication side of things. We're using a combination of emails and Microsoft Teams. Trying to reduce the emails is kind of what we're wanting to do. I was working with a parish the other day, and I looked at their inbox when I was working with them, and they had like 10 or 15 emails from across 3 or 4 days from different areas of the diocese. So they're finding that really difficult to manage. So how can we help that for them to make it less overwhelming?
Yep, great. Well, thank you for sharing those things. Yeah, it sounds like we've got some things in common. We've got sort of a few people on our teams. We're sort of shifting beyond email, which is really positive. I wasn't sure if I'd get some people on the call who are still sort of very stuck in email. So I will just sort of shift the content a little bit forward, which is good. So it's good that we're all sort of on the front foot with that. So obviously, when we're looking at this, the challenges are there can be too many channels and tools, and by reducing that and getting everyone on the same page is really the goal with that. So reducing emails with good communications. Hopefully we don't need to have as many meetings as what has traditionally been the case. It can be hard, particularly with emails, and just having things in lots of different places is that it's very hard to keep track of all the different conversations that you're having. And because of the roles that you're all in, you're mixing with a whole lot of different people as well. And it's very easy as well for people just to be, happy with what they do and become, it's not good if we're all using our own different ways of communicating and not all coming onto the same platform and being cooperative in that way. So people have personal preferences. If you don't have integrations and automation, as we've mentioned as well, there can be duplication, and having to keep things up to date in multiple systems can become tiresome, and then things can slip through the gaps as well. So we don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. And it's also important when we think about onboarding new either staff members or volunteers, and setting the expectation for how we communicate, I think, is really important. And that can be hard to make that shift, but I think sort of drawing a line in the sand and saying, hey, we want to keep improving how we're doing things, and that we need to give it a go. We'll discuss how to set those expectations as well. And I also encourage you, because it's the 4 of us, that we can feel free to jump in when you've got ideas and thoughts or questions too. Let's make this more of a dialogue and share your experiences. So do we do this one? Comms overload. Oh yeah, so this is, what happens when things really go pear-shaped, and this is what we don't want. So I think most of those are pretty obvious. Nods of heads, good. So what we really want is we want clear communication so we can get really good outcomes. And as I said before, we want everyone on the same page. With that, look, I think the 3 main things are clarity in that communication and being on the same page, trust, so that teamwork keeps solidifying, and transparency. Now, of course, we can't share every detail with everybody, but having the right tools in place means it's just easier for people to find things. There's less ambiguity. We want to be able to simplify the communication so that there are clear expectations, having some good and solid processes in place, and utilizing templates as well with systems is going to help be a key to that, and saving time and reducing the emails and meetings, as we said. So with that in mind, let's look at how we can win with internal communications. So obviously you guys have said you're all using Microsoft Teams or Google Chat or Slack or something like that. So Adam, Google Chat, in the past they've had Hangouts for a long time, and then they also had like the Google Plus thing that never really took off properly. Recently they've been shifting over from the old Hangout style thing to a thing called Google Chat. Have you come across that before? The newish one?
No.
Okay, so it's basically Google's version to Slack or Microsoft Teams, and you will have in there, what's similar to channels they call rooms, and then you can thread in there as well, and you can also have meetings for the people who are part of those rooms. So that could be a way of bringing another aspect of that if you're committing to using Google Suite. Google Chat is worth having a look at. I think that's only been rolled out in the last few months. It's a little bit more basic than Slack and Teams, but it's got most of it in there. So if you're already all using that already, it'd be worth checking out.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah. So it looks like we're probably all using channels and threads fairly well. I often find, instead of when I've worked in a team at St. Hilary's and we were using Slack there, that utilizing emojis to indicate that people acknowledge reading something, so you don't have to thread and say, oh yeah, got that, and oh, did you get this? Yes, yes, yes. But an easy thumbs up is a really quick win. And you can utilize then other emojis for specific things. And so you can build that into the patterns and the habits for your team. Templates are really important. So probably not so much within Slack and Teams, but even just having like a page, particularly if this is probably going to be more for if you're communicating to volunteers in something like a church management system, but also with emails that you send out externally. If you've got a bunch of templates for different emails and messages that everyone on your team has access to, so that you're using the same language and you've got that consistency going out, it will also save time not having to reinvent those, people having to type up the same messages each time. So next up is integration to the file system. So there's a whole lot of integrations, as you probably know, within Slack, Teams, Chat does as well. They call it bots, and you can integrate Google Drive and lots of other things into there. But that just makes it easier particularly for file storage, to be able to point people directly in, and then if they're in the team, then they'll have access to those documents straight away. That's worth looking at. So Adam, you mentioned you using Trello. You're not using that at the moment by the sounds of it. Are you using something else for project or task management with your team?
No, I use Google Keep a lot for my own task management stuff, but I haven't. Trello was supposed to be the kind of the leap into how we do group task management together.
And that's just within your immediate staff team?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And some of that is just, I don't know, some of it's just on hold because we haven't been in the office together for so long, and it's hard to start a new thing when you're all kind of everywhere. But yeah, it's they're all interested. They've all like signed up, logged in, started doing things, but it's just kind of sat there and not gone much further.
Yep. Andrew, anything on your end with those systems?
We sort of made forays into Trello, and it didn't really take. I use a thing called Workflowy to keep track of my upcoming tasks, but yeah, we've never really approached the productivity or task management. Yeah, that's something I would like to think about.
Yep, cool.
Because
We
we
will
are
discuss
losing.
that.
We're losing track of what people are supposed to be doing. So,
Yep. Okay, no problem. Kelly?
I was going to say for Andrew, since you're already embracing the Office 365 environment, looking at Microsoft
yeah,
Planner might be something worth looking at. We're
yeah,
using that a lot. It's very similar to Trello, but it
yep.
now has a normal to-do list integration, which is quite good.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, when I looked at Planner a couple of years ago, it looked really basic and clunky. Has that improved, Kelly?
Absolutely.
Oh, cool.
Honestly, yeah, I embed it within Teams now, and you can just embrace the whole thing within the Teams environment. It's so easy to navigate now. That was only changes were only made in like the last 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly. That's fantastic.
Oh, that's excellent.
Great. Then I've got apps. As you all know, you can put the apps on your phone. It's really worth turning statuses on and then having that notification switched off at particular hours so you don't get hit 24/7 with things. So encouraging your team to utilize that. And also status, if they're going to be away for a while, you can use that as sort of knowing who's in and out of the place too. This is probably fairly basic stuff. I think you're nodding your head. So just making sure that we're all aware of those things. So next up is the project management tools. So Asana, Trello, Planner and beyond. I've been using Trello personally for about 7 or 8 years, although I feel like I've outgrown that and I've moved now, particularly now that I'm in business for myself, but I'm using a tool called Plutio. So I'd be happy to give you a little bit of a demo. I can also show you a bit of Trello. Is that worth showing or just Plutio? Cool.
Yeah, just Plutio, I think.
Excellent. Okay, let me jump across to the Plutio. Too many tabs, Evan. All right, so this is Plutio. This is my Plutio, and bearing in mind I'm not a church anymore, but it's a similar thing in that you sort of have projects, which in Trello speak is boards, and so this is a list of all the boards, and then these are the different projects that I have in progress at the moment. I've got new ones here. I've got some that are on hold. I've got others that have been completed. So if I go inside one of these projects, then I'll show you YeGlance, which is a tool that I've been developing for a couple of years. Here we've got different lists, and you can all these sorts of Kanban board applications, you can set up the list however you want. You can set them up as a sequential list. So in this way, we've got a to-do list. And then when I want to say, right, let's hit go on it, I move that over to there. Did that disappear? Oh, it's being a little bit glitchy at the moment. So I put it into the ready to start, and then you move the tasks around. So in progress, ready for review, and completed. Then inside of each task, I'll give you an example here. We've got a description area. I didn't have a description directly in here. You can have a start and due date. You can delegate who the task is for on your team, people who are following this task or card. You can set up subtasks, which can be useful, such as a subtask. Well, I'll just put one in here. Welcome to the portal. Doesn't mean a whole lot. But then within a subtask, you've got the same setup again. So you can start to nest the tasks, which can be really helpful. Let me just delete that one. Then here I've got a discussion or a commenting tab. So as you've probably done before in Teams or Slack, you can put at somewhere to start mentioning a person on the team, and then they will get the notification specifically for it. I'm not going to actually post it. You hit post. It's got a fair bit of, in this editor, you can do quite a bit in there. It's more than just plain text. You can also add files and images and photos. Here's another section where you can add files, documents, and links. And in this one, we also have a timesheet, which not all task managers do, but that can be useful. Then, so that's how I keep track. And because I work with developers, I have an admin person I work with. And then I also can invite clients in. So for you, that could be, extra volunteers, someone who's not maybe directly on your team, you can invite into the system so they can keep track of where things are at and be part of the communication that happens within the task and within the project. Having everything, all the communication done within the project means that everything's sort of related and tied to the task, as opposed to living in a channel and then having to jump off into different areas for the work. All of the collaboration and the communication happens within here. So that's a real bonus. The other awesome thing, particularly with this system called Plutio, I've white labeled it, which is why you can't see the name on it at the moment, is they've got templates set up for everything. Almost everything. So for the projects, for the task boards, the task groups, and the tasks. So I'll give you an example of a task one, which would be a good one here. So I've got a comms campaign task. You can set the start and due date from when it begins to the number of days forward. You can set up different custom fields. Here are the subtasks. And so when I create a new comms task, I can utilize this template straight away without having to rebuild it from scratch. So starting to get, figuring out what the systems and the processes are, setting that up as a template. So then you just do the work once. And then an example then of a project template, for example, I set one up when I was at St. Hills for event management. And then within there, I've got the board set up. This is a bit more basic, but then a list of the tasks that are involved in setting up an event, say for the Peter Corney Training Centre. And then within each of these, we've also got subtasks as well. Some of them have descriptions within there or links to documentation on how to do a particular task. So then you've got the go-to there ready for whoever is assigned or delegated to that task. And if they're smart enough, they can just click on the link and you can have the instructions in there, so you don't have to repeat everything each time that you need something done, and that things can be done in a consistent way as well. How does that look to you? It takes a little bit of work to set up, but it pays back big time. And also you don't have to try and build out this massive big machine all at once either. Start on one project, start with a team of 2 or 3 people, get hold of a system. So you could utilize Planner and give that a go to start with. Kelly, do you know if Planner has those templates built in?
Not built in, but we've created our own templates, because you can any board you've got in that, you can copy that board over,
duplicate it
to another one. Yeah, you can duplicate it. Yep. And the only other thing that it doesn't have in Planner is that nesting that you had in where you can nest the tasks within another one.
Yep.
But you can still just create more tasks on the board.
Yeah.
So
cool. So Andrew and Adam, how, as in your sort of early days of thinking, how could you start to utilize something like that?
Yeah, still pondering, Evan. Yeah. I mean, I think part of my issue is also that, you know, the largely the team are very part-time or voluntary as well. So trying to get them, I don't want them to commit to something that I'm not 100% committed to either. And yeah, so that's part of my thought process as to, you know, and what level of complexity do we need?
Yep, good questions.
Yeah.
I'll jump in on that, and then Andrew will go over to you. So a couple of thoughts I've had with that is, yeah, that you need to be, you know, pretty sold on it yourself. So there's two things. One is that it needs to be something that's repeatable, a process that's repeatable. So think of something like that where you work together and it's a repeatable process. For example, an event. And it doesn't have to be, you know, have 20 steps in it. It could just be 3 or 5 steps to start with. Set up and have a practice just on your own when you're actually going through that process for yourself the next time you do it. And you just do it on your own. You're duplicating it in whatever way you're doing it now, but just play with it in Trello or in Planner and set it up. And the good thing about doing it as you're going is that as you're working through it, you can tweak it and go, oh, okay, yeah, that we could actually, you know, add that document in as a link, or actually we could simplify those 3 things and roll that into 1 or 2 things. And just, yeah, so there's a bit of while you're flying the aeroplane, you're building it out as well. And just have a go with that. And then next time you go through that, invite 1 or 2 people into it. So start with one thing that's going to be a repeatable process.
Yeah.
That would be my approach, just to getting off the ground and giving it a test go.
Thanks.
Cool. Andrew, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it'd be good to start with a basic exploration of it. I do find that I'm often following people up and how are you going on this, and they do resent those conversations at some level. And so this would be handy if you just let me know, right? Then we can have more productive conversation rather than just check out. I think I'm thinking about implementation. There's 2 personality sides to this. Pastoral people, is a big sell to sit down at a, you know, and make lists of things that you've done or are going to do. And there's some very detail oriented people on the team who might get a little immersed in the minutiae of it. So I'd have to try and implement it in a way that made sense for us with the people that, so it didn't become a bone of contention about who hasn't completed their board or whatever. So yeah, I definitely think something, but maybe I have to start quite simply just to,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But like even just having that board there and having the right people have access to it, you can just see this is where things are at. Oh, okay, you're up to this task. Have you done it yet? And often what I do with my assistant, you know, is if she's missed something, just going back into, where is it? Oh, here we go. Yeah, going back into here. So if my assistant's, you know, hasn't done something, I can probably have an example of that, say in training here. Actually, I've got an example from yesterday. I had a video from my previous session. This is the one I did a couple of weeks ago. And she was meant to add the video into our members area. She hadn't done it yet. And I just pinged her on here again. As you can see, I did a reminder. I set it up 2 weeks ago and she hadn't done it. So I've just done another reminder. Hey, Leslie, can you please add this video in again? Really basic, and it's not threatening to them. It's just, hey, this is where it's at. Can you please do this again? So yeah, it's, you know, and there is a culture shift that has to happen as well. And you're dealing with different personalities, and that's the joy of the job of being a minister. But hopefully a tool like this is, you know, it's worth investing a little bit of time in, and yeah, making it a slow burn, not changing the world all at once. Yeah. Any other questions around that? Cool. Okay. So Okay, and we don't need to see Trello now, do we? I think we're all put that out. Okay, that's cool. No worries. So let me jump back to la présentation. Present with view. Share this tab. Cool. The next thing I was going to look at was collaboration tools. It's probably not that essential, I guess, for you because we're all using it to a different degree. So I'm just trying to get back to here. Any questions around 365 or Google Suite and how to utilize it better? Andrew? Okay, awesome. Cool. So I think then setting the expectations. So particularly, I think the main gap we have at the moment is how do we roll out another tool like Planner, like Trello. So I think the three things we need to do is to be able to set the expectation is, of course, we need to give it a go ourselves, Adam, and see that we can, that firstly, does this make sense? Is it easy enough for us to use and for other people to use? Can I set it up in a way that I think we can roll out and make good use of? And then when you're selling it, essentially, you really need to give the why on it. Sorry if this is really basic, but I think we need to be getting better at doing that. And just being honest with that. It's like we want to be effective, we want to be efficient. This is meant to actually help us. In the long term, this is going to save us a whole lot of time. In reality, I can calculate that this is going to save our team 500 hours a year. And that's not exaggerating. I've got a calculator tool on my website. And after a few people, if you can eliminate some of that redundant communication, you're going to be saving a whole lot of time. Now, you do need to invest that time in setting up a system, in improving it, in training your people. There is time invested in that, but in the long run, once you set that up, once people are on board with it, then it will pay you back for a long time. So I know we're all busy, but the reward is greater than not doing anything about it. You do need to give some training to your team, particularly if they're not that tech savvy. But I mean, with all these systems, there are going to be lots of documentation available already, lots of video tutorials, and you can have, even just a few links that you send people in to start onboarding them. It's worth having, 1 or 2 hours face-to-face with everybody on the team and going through then how you're going to use it in your context. But to start with, even just sending a few of those links and having that available in one place on an index page somewhere or a hub, bless you, Kelly, is going to get people on starting to work together on that. And the other thing I said is give it a go. So what I mean by that is saying we're going to give this a go. And then it's less threatening than this is what we're going to do forever. We're going to try this out for the next 2 or 3 months and we're going to give it a good go. We're going to improve it. At the end of that time, we will sit down and see where we're at with it. So an example of that was we did that at St. Hills when we moved over from internal emails to Slack. Within 2 months, without prompting anyone, people are going, wow, this has been really good. This is saving us time. We're more clearer on how we communicate. And we had 20 people on staff then. And our emails went down probably 80%, I reckon, because then the rest of that's just for external use. So giving people just that opportunity that, you're not dictating to them exactly what we're doing, but we're going to give this a go and invite them to give feedback. But also, I had an interview a few weeks ago, which was up on my blog with Father John Sanderson from Ivanhoe, East, North, South, West, wherever he was. And he's got an IT background. So we had an interview about this and he said, no, what's my thought? giving a go. Oh yeah, capturing, finding out what people's pain points are at the moment to start with as well, and then turning that into how the system can help that. And if you can get them sold on that one pain point they've got at the moment around the communications, and making that the first thing that the system does to improve that pain point, then they're going to be sold on it much more easily. So finding out from people, maybe doing a survey on your comms, on your tech, on your collaboration, can, and finding out, even though like what the pain points are for you and you've got the bigger picture in mind, but finding out where they're at and what they perceive will help with that, getting people on board and sold on using it as well. So any questions around that? Cool. Great. So I had in here as well that, with 365 with Google Suite, this is a bit of an aside, that as non-profit organizations, you do have access to the not-profit version of that, which is essentially free or cheaper. So we're all on that, yes? Cool. Great. So really the benefit of the internal comms, the project management systems, is that everything's in one place. There's consistency for your team and for yourself. You have the consistent communications and processes, and ultimately it's going to save lots of time of unnecessary comms and collaboration. So that's the giving the why. And also when it's in the cloud and you've given the right access to the right people, they can access it anywhere at any time. And then when they leave their role or leave your church or whatever, you take them out, then they can't see it again and they don't have a copy of all those emails, that they've dumped somewhere. So that's most of what I have for you today. In a couple of weeks' time, I am running then a half-day mastermind on how we can set up a strategy for rolling this out within your church. So Kelly's already signed up, and you're very welcome to join us, Adam or Andrew, or if you have other people who might be able to benefit from that, I'll send you an email after today with the details for that. And it's a 1:45 now, and I'd be really happy to take any other questions that we have.
Not necessarily a question, but Andrew, if you're wanting if you want me to go over how we're using Planner in the diocese or Teams, please by all means feel free to reach out.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's good.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you. Yeah. Are there any online communities where people discuss these issues from a church point of view, like how things are going, tips, hints, kind of, so we could check in with that you're aware of?
Yep. So on Facebook, there's a really big group out of America, Church Communications, and I guess they use that more. There's probably more focus on the social media and the external communications, but there would be some discussion in there on project management tools. That's got about 26,000 people on there from all around the world, mainly America. I think that's going to be the main one. I've also got my group of about 200 Australian church leaders called Digital Systems for Churches. Feel free to jump onto there. I'll give you the link for that now as well. Digital Church chat. Kelly's sent her email address. Thank you for that, Kelly.
It's all right.
And I've just put the link in for the Digital Church. I'm just going to see what other church groups. There's Church Support Australia, which is run by a lady called Karen Stuckey, and she's based on the Victoria-South Australia border, and she's got a few thousand Australian church leaders in there. And then there's a social media one, but we won't worry about that group as well.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Or you can all go home early and Have the rest of the day off.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
If only that were an option.
Evan, this might be an obvious question, but is there much? I guess some of the systems that I've been using personally, they're just overhangs that I've used them for so long that I know how to use them well. And when I look at them, they're not part of the same suite, but they work. In some cases, for me, they work better than using the one system. Is there is there much virtue in saying everything should be Teams or everything should be Google or everything should be, whatever? Or is there wisdom in picking and choosing because you sort of can make them integrate, I guess, if you want to?
That's a pretty loaded question. In an ideal world, it's all going to be in the one system. And it then depends on the needs for your church and your context. And if those systems or that sort of the main system is going to meet most of that or as much of it as possible. And these days the systems are becoming more mature and sort of more reliable, better features, better integrations, better than it ever has before. Planner being a case in point. That 3 weeks ago they've really improved that. And so ideally, yes, have it all in the same suite if possible. And Microsoft and Google are the leaders, for obvious reasons with that. I think Teams looks like it's better for larger organizations particularly, and Google's good for hacking around and if you've got a small team that are familiar with that. But then if you can't get everything in the one platform, then you do have to pick and choose from around the place, but try and find systems that can either integrate directly with each other or or if you can use Zapier or Integromat or other integration connectors as well, can be a win in the long run, but that all takes time.
Yep. Yeah, thanks.
We found a big bonus with the Office 365 side of things was that people only had one login, because that was one problem we had before. We had people complaining they had to remember all these different passwords and different logins to things, but having just one that gave them access to everything they needed was a really big benefit. And cost-wise as well, like Evan mentioned, the not-for-profit rate, it's essentially zero if you're happy to use everything in the web, but just download and install Teams. But the license fee anyway is only $6.50 a month if you want to download and install the programs. So it's pretty cost effective, particularly for a small church.
Yeah,
thanks.
I have a question just about team video chats. We obviously that's all we're able to do at the moment, but we kind of came into it. We were getting set up in Zoom, and that's how we've been doing it. But is Teams a better way of sort of integrating that, or going forward for having staff meetings and that kind of thing? Would that work better than just having Zoom meetings all the time?
Yeah, if you already have access, if your team already have access to 365, and you don't need to do breakout rooms, that's really the one thing that Teams doesn't do yet. So if you don't need all that stuff, then get rid of your Zoom subscription.
Yeah.
Oh well, we need it for church stuff, but for staff stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and then it gets people into the habit that we're doing all our team collaboration and communication within Teams.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Breakout rooms are on the way too with Teams, but I wouldn't expect it before the end of the year, if not June next year.
Yep.
So.
Brilliant. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I think that's it.
Thanks, Evan.
All right, I'll send out an email. Have a great day and bless you all.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.